Hey, this is Katie at Kentucky Hemp Works. Good afternoon. Welcome to Lesson 8 of Hemp Homeschool. Today we're going to be talking a little bit more about the protein, the pellets that we produce here at the shop, and their benefits, the nutritional value, what all it can be used for, and the equipment that we use to process them. So if you remember from previous lessons, I talked about our cold press and how we actually take those seeds, and the cold press crushes the seeds, squeezes the oil out, and out of the front of the machine comes these little brown pellets. So these pellets, this is what's referred to as seed cake. So whether you're talking about soybeans or flaxseed or corn or things like that, it's always really referred to as seed cake in agriculture. And so seed cake is this hard, solid pellet type material. When you grind this up into a coarse ground, then we call it seed meal. So when you get, I don't know what that was, but it was probably good luck. So when you get corn meal from the store, that cornmeal is corn cake, seed cake, that has been ground up into a coarse grind that can be used in food. So think about that when you think about this hemp meal and how we use hemp protein powder in food as well. So I got a few of these here. I got a nice little bowl full of some of these. We actually refer to these sometimes as pigsy sticks because I used to have a potbelly pig who loved them. And because she loved them and their sticks, we called them pigsy sticks. But we refer to these as pellets or seed meal, or I'm sorry, seed cake. And then when we grind it down, we refer to it as hemp seed meal. So what this is essentially is the dry parts of the seed, the shells, the fiber, the protein, and this is a tremendous source of dietary fiber for humans. So the latest feed report that we did on this showed that the protein content was around 32% protein, and the vast majority of the rest of it was fiber. So it's mostly protein and fiber, and then there's some other nutrients in there. And we will actually share a copy of that feed report below so you can take a look at it. What's interesting about that report and what really makes hemp seed meal more appropriate for humans is the high level of digestibility, the high level of absorbable nutrients. So if you look at that seed report or that feed report, it should show absorbable nutrients at over 70% on that report. So it's very easy on our digestive tracts. It's easy to break down and process and absorb those proteins. Whereas with something like soybeans, if you use soybean meal in your protein shakes or, protein shakes and protein powders and things like that, that soybean meal will have a higher protein content, but it's not as good on our digestive tracts. It's not as easy to absorb, and it comes with other sort of non-beneficial side effects as well. So hemp protein is a great replacement for other protein powders. Once again, it's got that green, grassy, nutty taste, probably more grassy than nutty when it gets to this point, but there aren't too many sources of protein powder that really taste that great. So a lot of people and different protein powder brands or people at home will mix this with other things that taste good. So one of the things that we like to do is to make smoothies with it. So when we grind this up into a powder, then we can add berries or vegetables or different things that we like to the smoothie with almond milk or whatever your preference is, to boost the protein and fiber levels of those smoothies. And it's an easy way to get that grassy, earthy flavor, or the benefits of the grassy earthiness without as much of the taste. Would you grab me a bag of protein powder? So, oh yeah, and by the way, as far as smoothies go, my sister started making peanut butter and jelly smoothies, and those quickly became my favorite, and I kind of don't want anything else anymore. But the peanut butter and jelly smoothies are, whatever your milk base is, so almond milk or cashew milk or something like that, with the hemp protein, some peanut butter, and whatever sort of berries or fruits that you like to go on your PB&J. I love them. It's probably my favorite way to drink a smoothie. So how we get from this seed cake to the powder is a little bit of a longer process. It's a lot of work, but we've got some equipment that helps us get there. The first piece of equipment that we use is a hammermill. Now, I don't have that hammermill here. What I have behind me is a somewhat older, beat up version of the hammermill that we do use, but it's a good way for me to show you the process and how it works without having that hammermill here. So that hammermill is elsewhere on the farm right now. So this particular machine, this is an older hammermill. You can see it's very rusty and things like that, but we don't actually plan on using this for anything for human consumption. We're not making food products with this. What we'd like to do with this bad boy is to grind up the stalks and be able to do some fiber projects with the stalks. So could be paper making, could be surfacing materials, construction materials, things like that. So we're still sort of experimenting with that, but it is a very fun project. But what I wanted to show you are the screens on this thing. So if we kind of come down here, there's a screen inside of this hammermill that is being used, and this particular screen isn't going to be used. But you see these holes on it, and you can see that the screen is curved, sort of like a section of a circle. So this screen inside of the hammermill, and there's all these metal hammers that spin around really quickly, and it actually grinds up your material against this screen. So a hammermill is called a hammermill because it uses hammers. These hammers literally will just spin and spin. It grinds it on this and it pulverizes it. So when we hammermill our pellets, it actually takes it down to the size of like a coarse grind, maybe a little bit more coarse than coffee grinds, which are small, but they're not really suitable for mixing into smoothies at that size. So when they're down to coffee ground size, we could very easily mix that in with animal feed, then as fertilizer, as an amendment to soil. It's a bit too big of chunks for baking in bread or adding to a smoothie or things like that. So the next step in the process is our stone burr mill, and that's this thing over here. The stone burr mill actually operates entirely differently. So the stone mill, instead of having these hammers that are grinding the seed cake against a screen, the stone burr mill has one stationary stone and then one stone that spins against it. And those two, they have little pits on them. They're very spiky. And they actually, you have your one spinning stone and it grinds up that coarse ground material into a very fine material. And from there, we actually have some other equipment that is sort of a big brother version of our little stone burr mill. And it's got a shaker table built in. So once it gets ground up into a fine grind, then it will get sucked up into the shaker table, and then the shaker table will use a series of screens at different sizes to remove the big pieces that maybe little bits of the shell that didn't get ground up or things like that. But it removes those pieces so that we're left over with just the finest material. And what we get out of that is our powdered hemp protein. So this protein is the it's the end result of what we get, and you can see here it's very powdery. Some of these little chunks here actually are such a super light fine powder that they're almost like flour. But for the most part, it's definitely not as fine of a grind of what we consider flour, you know, just regular grain flour is usually finer than what we can get this down to. But some of the whole wheat flours are very similar to this, so it's not something people aren't used to. So once it's down to that size, it's very easy to add a little bit of protein powder to what you're baking. I like to add a little bit to my kids' oatmeal. And if I only add a little bit, they don't really notice and they'll still eat it. But for the most part, you know, it's something that you kind of have to just blend into your food to get those health benefits without getting too much of the flavor. But so smoothies, oatmeal, we like to bake bread with it. And for recipes, what you can do is just substitute a small amount of your flour for hemp protein powder. So, you know, if recipe calls for 2 cups of flour, you could substitute maybe a 1/4 cup of flour for hemp protein powder, or a 1/2 cup or something like that. So you cannot bake with it instead of flour. Like, it doesn't really work as like a rising yeasty product, but you can substitute some of your flour. Other things that you can do, I mean, the hemp seed meal is fantastic for animals. We actually are working on a study, and we're not allowed to talk about it too much, but the study is using this hemp seed meal blended with other grains into pellets that are used to feed livestock. So we're really excited. Hopefully before long we'll actually get some results that we can share. But it's extremely exciting to be kind of on the forefront of some of the research that's going on in this country right now. Again, I mentioned yesterday, Murray State University in Western Kentucky was doing some animal feed studies, and you know, they've come out with some pretty amazing information. So we had a couple of questions. One of the questions was if the seed cake was a good vegan source of protein, and that is correct. It is a great source of protein for vegans because there's absolutely no animal byproducts whatsoever. Not all of our products are vegan. We do use beeswax in some of the products, and I know that fits the vegetarian model, but not the vegan model. But yes, the protein is definitely a great vegan source of protein. Another question I think we had was asking if there were amino acids in the shells. I wasn't able to find an answer, but I would be willing to bet that the vast majority of amino acids are housed within the shell, in the hearts of the nut itself. I think we had one other question, but not remembering it. I guess I didn't take my hemp seed this morning for memory and cognitive function, but I will get into our homework for today. There are a couple of links that will be posted in the comments, and once again, it's a great way to go down the rabbit hole on your hemp nutrition and wellness and things like that. But one of the links is some research that talks about neurodegenerative diseases, which are diseases in our brain, really, where neural pathways aren't connecting and things like that, and we start to see a slow degeneration of our neural pathways. And but it talks about how hemp seed meal can actually be very helpful in building those pathways and supporting brain health. And it also talks about high cholesterol and how this seed meal, it can be beneficial in lowering cholesterol levels and promoting good cardiovascular health as well. So the second link on there is about using this hemp seed meal as animal feed. So there are surprisingly a huge number of studies from decades and decades of research that talk about how good hemp protein is for animals and animal feed. And in this country right now, we are struggling with getting hemp approved as an animal feed by the FDA. And so hopefully before long, we'll kind of get through some of those regulatory obstacles and be able to use this as feed as well. Of course, there's nothing keeping farmers from feeding it to their animals, but as far as us marketing it and selling it and saying, here's a bag of our animal snacks or something like that, we do have to get that approved if it's in the human food supply. So that's just part of the wheelhouse of the FDA and how they control the food that is produced in this country. So I think that's it for today. We will probably have a little bit more math homework for you. I meant to get this to my sister Tanya yesterday, and I guess I just hate math homework so much that I procrastinated until it never happened. But we will be sharing a copy of our feed report, our latest feed report on the hemp protein powder. And you know, it's possible to just look at those percentages and determine, you know, if I have 10 grams of protein powder, how much fiber am I getting out of those 10 grams? How much protein am I getting out of those 10 grams? And then you can look at all the other nutrients and things that are in there. We do have a more in-depth report that shows the vitamins and the minerals and omega fatty acids and stuff specifically. But we thought for math homework, we'll stick with the simple feed report. You can look at fiber and protein and some of the basics. So that's it for today. Next week, we are still kind of planning things out, but we have some really fun stuff for you. We also tomorrow, hopefully tomorrow, if everything goes well with the video, hopefully tomorrow we'll be able to share a workout video from one of the MMA fighters that we sponsor, Letitia Moles. So Letitia has been training for a few years now. She is just an amazing young woman. She is strong and beautiful and passionate about fitness and competing and just being her best person every day. So she agreed to do a little workout video that we can share to hopefully get everybody moving and keep everybody moving while we're stuck inside. And so hopefully that'll go great and the video will upload fine and we'll be able to share that tomorrow. And if not, we'll share it next week. So come back and see us next week. We'll have a new syllabus out by Monday, and looking forward to seeing you again. Thanks.